Today, we're going to be talking about my top 10 favorite trees. So trees were this is where I first started, was in the trees and shrubs department here at McDonald Garden Center almost 17 years ago. And so, of course, I fell in love with trees right away. I realized how valuable they are to the landscape, to our environment, to our health. They just give you such a sense of well-being, and it's just a very, very fun thing to be out in the yard and be in the garden and be around trees. Whether it's a massive tree, whether it's a 80, 100-foot oak or maple or pine, down to your little itty-bitty Japanese maples. There's so many assortments in trees, and they're just very valuable because they last a long time. You know, shrubs would be my next favorite, but trees are my first love and passion. I love being around them. I know how important they are to our lives. They produce oxygen for us to breathe. They help clean the air, take pollutants out of the air. So they're extremely vital to our lives, to the entire life of the planet. And they're very, very valuable. And of course, we use them for lots of things. I mean, every house, fence, everything that we use, a lot of it comes from trees, and trees are very, very important and very valuable. I know a lot of people get a little scared about trees because they're worried about sizes, and I'm going to tell you all about the different sizes here. I'm not going to talk about too many of your larger trees, what I would consider to be a shade tree. I know some people get a little bit worried about those. We do sell shade trees. I will be showing you one of them made my top 10 list. But shade trees are great for the environment. Think about your yard in the summer when you're experiencing your yard and you're out in your yard and trying to find a cool place to go in those summer months. And a huge shade tree provides such a canopy that you can enjoy even the hottest temperatures outside underneath a shade tree. We've got a gorgeous one here, a massive oak that is on our deck here at the Independence location around our entrance to our greenhouse. And it is a huge old oak. And it is a really, really gorgeous tree. And it is one of the coolest spots, temperature-wise, in the summer months here at the Garden Center. It's one place you'll probably find a lot of employees hanging out, trying to catch a breath of fresh air, because through the transpiration process where trees absorb carbon dioxide and turn it into oxygen, they are releasing a cooler breeze. You can find the temperature underneath a good shade tree to be 5 to 10 degrees cooler than the outside temperature. And that is literally because the tree is breathing, and it's breathing oxygen, and it's pushing out air, and it's cooling that air down. So they're amazing trees, and there's so many of them. And it doesn't have to be a big tree. So you're going to get that shade from a smaller tree. I'm going to talk about a lot of these trees here. You're going to get those amazing benefits from trees of any size, whether it's a small tree, that creates an environment for you to kind of enjoy a focal point. They are so vital to landscape design. When we talk about design, trees become focal points in the backbone of a good landscape design. And there's just so many uses for them. And so that's why I fell in love with them, is because I just love the longevity of them and the beauty in the spring. Spring, to me, is all about trees. That's really the sign of spring. You start to see the maples and the oaks starting to put out their flowers. You start to see the cherry trees and the pears. Your dogwoods are going to come soon. Crepe myrtles in the summer. But spring, to me, is all about trees. It's a great time to see them. Japanese maples are leafing out. We've got so many to talk about here today, so I'm going to get into that pretty soon. I just have to elaborate a little bit on why trees are so valuable to us, not only for our health, but for our landscape, and they increase your value of your property. Having a home that has established trees really brings a value to the landscape and to your home and to your area and your neighborhood. A lot of these new neighborhoods going up don't have many trees, but they're planting trees, which is great. So you've got trees, but if you go into an old established neighborhood, big trees are a must. It feels like that community has been there for a while, and it just gives everybody kind of a sense of longevity. And so that's what's really, really cool about trees. And there's so many different varieties. I mean, prehistoric trees. Some trees can live 3,000 to 4,000 years. I mean, think of the giant sequoias out in California, and there's a couple pines out there that are over 4,000 years old. Ginkgo trees are one of my favorites. They didn't make the list, but ginkgo trees were here when the dinosaurs were here. So that's a prehistoric tree. Umbrella pines, I mean, those grow in China for thousands of years. So trees have such an importance to us, the environment, and to the landscape and the possibilities just go on and on. And then think about wildlife. I mean, all the birds and squirrels and all the different animals that use trees and live in trees and live around trees and need trees to survive. They're very, very valuable. They're very important, and they're just extremely vital. Bees, butterflies, you think about crepe myrtles, vitex, all of these different types of trees are just amazing for the environment and for us and our sense of well-being and our future. So let's not cut down a ton of trees. Let's support the tree community. Plant some trees. It's a great time to do that. Let me say one thing for the sake of if you're looking to buy some trees and you're looking to come in and get some trees, we do carry some trees over at our Great Neck location. If you're looking for the biggest selection, and I'm not trying to say don't go to Great Neck, it's just the independent store does have a bigger selection of trees. Great Neck's a great place to start. If you live near the Great Neck location, definitely stop by there. If you are going to the garden markets, sometimes we'll have some fruit trees and different types of trees there as well. So you can always find some trees here and there. Japanese maples are a great choice, and we've got those at all of our locations. We've got palm trees, we've got figs. So we've got a good collection all around in all of our locations. But if you're looking for some mainstays, some of the trees that I'll be talking about today, you might only find them here at our Independence location. So I just kind of want to give you that warning. I don't want you to feel like you can go to our Percosin Garden Market and maybe pick up all of these trees. You might have to venture over here to our Independence location. And if you live in our neck of the woods here at Independence, definitely check us out. It's an amazing place. All right, so before I get into my top 10 list, which is going to be a lot of fun because, as you can probably already tell, I love trees. It will be a little bit hard to show some of these trees. It is spring, and so some of them, you can see I've got some that have leaves just emerging, some that are blooming, some that maybe have finished blooming, some that are just twigs. So I'm going to try and elaborate the best I possibly can and give you all the information so that you get a really good sense of what these trees do and what they offer. So hopefully that helps you kind of understand what I'm talking about, because I know some of them don't look like a whole lot. I've got to give some love to some honorable mentions that I'm going to show you real quick. So before I get into my top 10 list, I'm going to show you a couple that maybe were just on the outskirts of making my list. So I'll talk about those real quick. Let me move a couple things around. And I am going to be moving around a little bit as I kind of bring every tree to the forward and kind of show you everything. And so the first one I want to talk about is palm trees. This is a windmill palm. Windmill palms are really probably the only hardy palm for this area. Yes, there are other ones out there, but this is the only hardy palm that we sell in our trees and shrubs department that we really feel like has the most cold hardiness. So if you ever considered, trees can give you so many different looks. You think about a Zen garden with the Japanese maples, a classic cottage garden with dogwoods and cherry trees. And then if you're looking for a tropical look, trees can help you along the way. And palm trees, of course, are kind of the signal of the tropics. And so palm trees are really, really great. There's a lot of different ones out there, but be careful. There's a lot of different selections and a lot of them aren't winter hardy. But the palms that you see really growing in this area for longevity purposes, for long term, would be the windmill palm. Windmill palms are very cold hardy. They can take our cold temperatures. They don't have a lot of issues. They're pretty easy to grow. Is this going to cast a shadow and give you shade? Not necessarily. It'll give you a little one, but it's kind of an umbrella shape. So you basically get this canopy on it, and this canopy will get bigger. They grow about a foot a year. They're pretty easy to maintain. They can get anywhere from 20 to 40 feet tall. Typically what I always try and do, and we'll kind of nip this in the bud here real quick, when I give estimates on sizes, that's about a 10-year estimate. And once we get past that 10-year estimate, trees never stop growing. They just are going to grow a little bit slower. So our 10-year mature size is what I'm going to try and give you. And then after that, they can kind of slow down a little bit. Some trees take a little bit longer. But palm trees in about 10 years be about 10, 15 feet tall, depending on what size you get them at originally. But they're very easy, very low maintenance. You don't have to necessarily wrap them up in this area, especially in the Virginia Beach area. If you're near a coast, if you're near the waterways, it stays a little bit warmer. We get that breeze off the water, it stays a little bit warmer. You can wrap them if you want to protect them. If you're a little further inland, if you're on the peninsula into Williamsburg, you might want to wrap them. And really what that's doing is just protecting the crown and protecting the leaves from winter damage. They're very easy to maintain and very easy to prune. So what's cool about these is Some of these older palm leaves are a little ratty and torn, so you can kind of maybe see this one down here. It's a little kind of beat up, and it's on the lowest rung of this. So really easy just to go in, you pull that back and cut it out, and there you go. Palm leaves also make great decorations, whether you're, if you're decorating something for a party, even the holiday season, it's great to bring in some palm leaves. So it's a really, really cool tree. It didn't make my top 10 list, not because we don't have them or not because we don't sell them. It's just something that some people might want to grow, but a lot of people don't. But it's a really, really cool tree. Palm tree, the windmill palm, is the most winter hardy. So I wanted to show you that. Didn't quite make my list, but it's on my honorable mention. All right. So next, that didn't quite make my list, I wanted to do a conifer. So, because we always think of trees as, trees that lose their leaves. Of course, there's lots of evergreen trees out there, like magnolias, which didn't make my list either, but magnolias are great trees. But this is a gorgeous conifer. This is a Hollywood juniper, and Hollywood junipers just do so well in this area. Junipers are really, really drought tolerant, very, very good plants. A lot of people classify this as a shrub, and so that's why maybe it didn't quite make my list, is because a lot of people think of it as a shrub. It depends on what your definition is. Shrubs that go over 20 feet are typically classified as trees, and Hollywood junipers can get close to that size. 15 to 20, 25 feet tall. What I really love about Hollywood junipers are the really unusual habit. Look at these arms coming out. So isn't that cool how they just kind of reach out, sprawl out? They're very cool, very unique. Not one is the same as another. They're very different. You see a lot of them here around the coastal areas because they just have this really cool, unique look, almost a windswept look. Do great in well-drained soils, but also do pretty well in some moist soil. Very versatile plant, very cold hardy, very easy to grow, but also pretty drought tolerant for a conifer plant. So Hollywood junipers didn't quite make my list, but they are very cool, very unique, can be a specimen for sure. And what I will also mention at this point is we're gonna put the notes out for all the trees that I talk about. I know a lot of them, you probably won't be able to quite understand what they really look like. And so go and do a Google search and just put in Hollywood juniper and look at the images that come up. They really help kind of explain what the tree can become. Really, really unique, really, really different. Great cuttings for Christmas decorations. Really, really fragrant. Just a great juniper, the Hollywood juniper. Didn't quite make my list, but I had to mention them. All right, the next one was really close to making my list. And I know this doesn't look like much of anything to you, but fig trees. So I've always called them trees. I've always grown them as a tree. Yes, they can be a shrub. So think of like crepe myrtles. Crepe myrtles could be a tree or a shrub. Maybe we'll talk about crepe myrtles here soon. But fig trees are really, really great. And I kind of wanted to bring this in to also talk about fruit trees in general. Fruit trees, fig trees, persimmons, these are all trees that we benefit on the edible side as well. So we're able to eat what they produce. And figs are one of my favorite because they have hardly any issues. They don't get a lot of disease issues, don't have a lot of insect issues. Yes, when the fruit ripens and they start to kind of get a little open a little bit, wasps can get in there sometimes, but typically fig trees have very, very little issues. If we get up into the Williamsburg area, sometimes in a very extreme cold winter, we could lose these down to the ground, but they usually come right back from the rootstock, and that hasn't happened for years. So fig trees are super, super durable, been around a long time, as we all know, and fig trees are just so beneficial and so tasty. I just love the taste of a good fig. A good ripe fig is awesome. And we do carry these. Of course, they're in a little shrubby form to start, but these will actually get some pretty good size. Most of them get 12, 15, maybe even 20 feet tall. I've definitely seen some 20 feet tall, and I love to limb these up and create a kind of multi-trunked tree that gets this great canopy on it. And then, of course, you get the benefit of the fruit. It's just an awesome, awesome plant. Some can be grown in containers, so they're pretty versatile too. So you can grow these in containers. You can grow them as a specimen. You can grow them in your fruit tree. You can grow them as an orchard. Line them up and just have a ton to choose from and a ton to pick from. They're very easy to grow. They don't require pollination from another fig, so you can have one, you can have 10. Of course, the more you plant, the more you're going to get. But fig trees are a great one, and there's lots of different varieties. We have more coming in, so figs are a great option for sure. They're very easy to grow, very easy to establish, and very easy to go and pick the fruit from when they ripe in the late summer to early fall time frame. So really, really cool plant. With that, with figs also come, apples, pears, plums, and persimmons. Persimmons are one of the best fruiting trees in this area. Very easy to grow. So fruit trees didn't make my list, but figs were really close. Figs are one of my favorites. Of course, there's tons of other fruit trees that you can grow in this area. A lot of our fruit trees are going to be dwarf to semi-dwarf. And what that means, I always like to explain this because I think it helps understand why we sell the semi-dwarf. I know a lot of people ask for, the Bartlett pears. Well, Bartlett pears are big trees and they take a long time to actually start fruiting. But a dwarf or semi-dwarf tree will actually fruit either the first or second year that you have it very quickly. So you can start to get fruit very, very quickly from them. And that's what's really cool. Plus, who wants a 40 to 50 foot tall pear tree? You can't get the fruit off of it. You can't get your pears off of it. So why not grow something smaller? So most of our fruit trees are going to be a dwarf or semi-dwarf, get about 12 to 15 feet tall, and a lot easier to be able to harvest and get your fruit off of them. And don't take up as much space in your landscape as well. I see a question. So Leela said, in southern Chesapeake, it gets cold enough to kill them to the ground, but the root doesn't die and they come back. So she's talking about figs. That's a great point. And I forgot to mention, if you've got questions, if you've got comments, please make them throughout this webinar. I will definitely try and answer them as we go through this. And my fig would die each cold winter. Yeah, so sometimes, and there are different winter hardinesses of your figs. So some figs are a little less winter hardy. So maybe it was a variety that, was dying back, although it does get cold down there in Chesapeake sometimes. We definitely know that the cold could kill them to the ground, but they almost always come back. But here in the Virginia Beach area, I've had one in Hampton and Newport News and have had no problems and no issues. And they just keep producing every year, and I love them. So figs are a great one. If you're thinking about doing a fruit tree, I would suggest that one to start with for sure. She said the honey fig. So I'm not real sure on that one. We carry a lot of the Celeste, Strawberry Vert, and what's the other main one? Now I can't even think of the name. But brown turkey. So those are some of your winter hardy ones that do very well and very sweet and good eating as well. All right. So those are some of my honorable mentions. I mentioned another one, magnolia. They didn't quite make it. We do carry magnolias. They are great trees. But let's move on and let's go and start with my top 10 list. And we'll try and breeze through this as fast as I can, but I am going to try and elaborate as much as I can too to help you kind of understand how some of these trees look, because some of them, like this next one, doesn't look like a whole lot. And this is my number 10, crepe myrtles. And I know a lot of you are probably saying, crepe myrtles, that should be like one of your top, almost a number one. There's a lot of them here in the Hampton Roads area. Crepe myrtles are extremely popular. Love our temperatures in this area, and I love crepe myrtles. I love a lot of trees, so I'm going to say that a lot, that I really love this tree. And being on the top 10 list is a great accolade for sure. Crepe myrtles are amazing. They are so many different varieties, so many different colors. So when we think of crepe myrtles, of course we think of the blooms. It's the tree of 100 days. They can bloom for almost 3 months. Whether it's a white bloom, pink bloom, purple, or red, they come in a lot of different colors. There are actually new varieties coming out with different leaf colors. So sometimes you can get that really dark burgundy leaf with a white bloom. Crepe myrtles are known for their multi-trunked nature. So you can see right here, multi-trunks. This one's got 4 trunks. Sometimes you get them with 3, 5. Typically, you're not going to see a single trunk on a crepe myrtle. Single trunks on crepe myrtles get a very big canopy. That arching habit really helps kind of support that tree and keep it nice and stable. And it loves being in a clump like this. It actually makes it a stronger tree. But crepe myrtles do extremely well in this area. Very drought tolerant, very heat tolerant, practically indestructible. A really, really great tree. Lots of interest throughout the years. So it's one of the last trees to leaf out. So I know this one's got little buds coming on it. You can see those little tiny buds coming out on it. But it's one of the last trees to actually leaf out here in the Hampton Roads area. But as soon as it leaves out and we get a little bit of warmth, then man, the blooms start to come, and then they last a long time. And then it's one of the first trees to drop their leaves. but the fall color on some of these are absolutely amazing. And then I think they've got winter interest as well, because a lot of varieties get the exfoliating bark. So I don't know if you can quite see this, but that bark is really kind of that, it's got a lot of lines and really has this really pretty color. But as they get older, you get kind of that river birch kind of look, that exfoliating bark where you get kind of cinnamon colored under the tan that starts to peel off. So many different varieties. Lots of different sizes too. So, you think of crepe myrtles and you think, 20, 25 feet tall and wide. This is the Natchez, which is one of our favorite white ones. Gets that huge, gorgeous canopy. Really, really pretty tree. But you can get them all the way down to a bush size. I mean, we've got some that get 2x2, 3x3. So crepe myrtles vary in size. There's a lot of what I call small. So you got your miniatures, your shrubs, which get about 2x2 to 4x4. Then you've got your small trees, which get somewhere between 8 to 10 feet. Then you've got your semi-dwarf or your dwarf, which get about 10 to 15 feet tall. And then you've got your larger group that can get anywhere from 20 to even 30 feet tall with age. So crepe myrtles are fast growing. They're very easy to grow. They take to pruning pretty well. Of course, we all know crepe myrtle, which crepe myrtle is, of course, where we prune it in the exact same spot every single year to try and keep it at the exact same size. That is not the best method to keep your trees. What you can do is you can actually cut crepe myrtles pretty hard if you need to. Just don't do it very often. We want to do it very infrequently. And I think the best advice this is a good spot to kind of say that, is do a little bit of investigation into the trees. Ask us questions. We've been in Hampton Roads for 75 years. So ask us questions. We have a lot of answers for you on the different size and different types of trees that you can grow in your area. So think about the size that you want it to be and don't get something too big. If you've got power lines that are about 20 feet tall in the air and you plant a 30-foot tall crepe myrtle underneath them, you're going to be pruning it a lot, which is not what the tree wants. So maybe we can pick a different tree. Think about this too. I know a lot of us plant them near our driveways. Well, they shed petals during the summer months. Gorgeous tree, might be better located a little bit further away from our driveways so that we're not getting our cars with all those dried up petals all over it. So, think about all those different things when you go to plant a tree and ask us questions. We can help you. But crepe myrtles, get back on subject. Crepe myrtles are an amazing tree. Very vase-shaped to globe-shaped type of canopy. Really easy to grow. And we carry a selection right now. We get even more as we start to get warmer and they start to bloom. But crepe myrtles are a great choice. There's a size, a color to fit your design, your landscape, however it is that you might need that. There's probably a crepe myrtle that fits your need. Great selection, my number 10. All right, let's go on to number 9. So number 9 is going to be a native tree, redbuds. Let me pull this one over here without taking out my ceiling. All right, so here's a redbud. So redbuds are a native tree, really, really pretty trees. Very easy to grow. Let's see if I can turn this one so you can see some of those really pretty blooms. So redbuds are blooming right now. You probably see them in your area blooming. A native tree to the eastern part of the United States, all the way from Canada down to almost Florida. So redbuds are really, really popular trees. It's kind of a sign of spring. It's one of the first trees to bloom as far as native trees go. Really, really pretty. They call them redbuds because the bud comes, when the bud first is kind of formed, it's a dark purple to almost red color. And then as they open up, it really emerges into a purple to even a soft pink. So you get this really pretty color to them. Great tree, only gets about 20 by 20, maybe 25 feet high and wide. So not very big. And I know some of you might be saying, that's big, that's a big tree. That's actually not that big. Think about a 20-foot tree. If you plant it 20 feet away from your house, it'll never touch your house, even if it blows down during a storm, which redbuds wouldn't do because they're very strong trees. And a lot of these trees, especially native trees, have lasted in this area for hundreds and hundreds of years, so they can take this weather and they can take the storms. And so a lot of these trees are going to be native, and a lot of them are very strong trees. But redbuds are great. They get a really kind of cool, kind of arching habit. Think of them kind of like a dogwood type of shape. So kind of sprawling is what I like to call that. They can naturally form a nice crown to them. They get about, so I mentioned they get about 20 by 20. The leaves on them are really spectacular. Big leaves, about 4 inches across, a heart shape. So they get this really pretty heart-shaped leaf to them. and they come in a lot of different varieties now. So there's some that, have yellowish leaves, some that have variegated leaves, and then of course I love those burgundy leaf ones, are really, really gorgeous. There's also dwarfs like Don Eagle that only gets about 8 feet tall, to 8 to 10 feet tall, just loaded with blooms. And then of course just your regular eastern redbud, and there's weeping redbuds as well. So there's a huge collection in the redbud world, and they're really, really, really great trees. Now where should you grow them? And I didn't mention this with crepe myrtles. Crepe myrtles, of course, are full sun. And so Wendy just mentioned that I see redbud planted in full sun, but aren't they understory trees? Great question, Wendy. I was just about to get to that. You read my mind. So redbuds, I see them as a little bit of an understory tree. They would prefer a little bit of shade. Now, what happens if you have it in full sun? I'm not going to say that you can't grow it in full sun. Of course, I think you can. But in our summer months when it gets really, really hot, it would prefer a little bit of shade on it. So think about this natural native habitat. And where do we see them naturally growing? Think about when you're driving on the interstate and you see them kind of poking out from underneath the woods. And so that's where they're naturally growing, as an understory tree. The definition of an understory tree is that it grows under other larger trees, open forest areas. So they get some sunlight, and they typically prefer to be like in the mountains. They typically prefer the south side of a mountain, where they're going to get more light coming in versus the north side. But they do like getting a little protection from that hot afternoon sun. Do they have to have it? Not necessarily. What you can expect in full sun is a little bit of leaf damage during those summer months. You might see some burning on the edges. You might see some leaf drop a little bit here and there. And when a tree is a little stressed out, it can open it up to other issues, other diseases. Insects start to realize, hey, this tree is struggling, but in a little bit of shade, it'll do a little bit better. Now, in the shade, what can occur, unfortunately, is we can get a little powdery mildew sometimes on them. That's a little bit easier to cure. It's a little bit easier to kind of take care of that. It's pretty rare that that happens, but it can happen in a shady location, especially if it's a moist area. They won't love that as much. But redbuds are gorgeous trees. I've seen them growing perfectly fine in full sun. If we're going to grow them in full sun, what can we do to protect them a little bit? Mulch. Mulch is super important. So I always say if you're planting a tree, invest in your soil, invest in its home. And its home is the ground. So definitely amend your soil, whether you've got clay or sand, whatever it might be. Let's amend it with compost and perlite. That's very important. Let's give it a great start with Biotone Starter. This is an amazing starter fertilizer plant food that has mycorrhizae and beneficial bacteria that attach themselves to the roots and give it the best start that it ever can. Whether you're transplanting or planting a new plant, Biotone Starter is a great option for you. And then of course mulch at the end. So, and keep weeds away from the trunk. You know, the top system of a tree, the very shallow root system, is one of the most important parts to not mess with. And so that's where it's going to start getting nutrients from initially. That's where it's going to get its first drip of moisture when it rains. And if you've got weeds growing up around the trunk of a tree, that can of course harm it. And then of course, how are you going to cut them? You're probably going to use your weed whacker. It's going to nick the trunk. We don't want to do that. It's going to keep excess moisture around the trunk. We don't want to do that either. But mulching will keep moisture around the root system and keep your trees really, really happy. Keep the weeds out, keep the moisture in, keep them warm in the winter, keep them cool in the summer. So mulch is very important, and that will help as we go into the summer months. And then of course, if it's a new tree or it's been planted in the past 2 years, and we have those 100-day stretches or 100-degree temperatures for days and days, and it hasn't rained, it's never going to hurt the tree to go out there and give it a good soaking. And by soaking, what do I mean? Take the hose, drop it on there, let it soak it for like 20, 30 minutes, maybe an hour. You really probably can't water it too much if it hasn't rained for 5 days and it's 100 degrees outside. So give it a really good deep soaking, a long soaking, where the hose is kind of filling that area and really watering it very, very well. That'll keep your tree from burning during those summer months. So redbuds can really be pretty versatile. Yes, they would love a little bit of shade. As an understory tree, naturally, that's what they prefer, but I've seen them growing in full sun. So Wendy, I think you can do them in both locations. Just if you plant them in full sun, we have a harsh stretch in the summer, you might see some burning on the leaves. Some varieties can get those seed pods. It's actually in that family where it gets the seed pods coming off that look like beans. And it's a really, really cool looking tree. Most varieties nowadays don't have that attribute. They've been kind of hybridized out of that. but really, really cool tree, a sign of spring, a different color that you don't get a lot out of trees. Pretty long-lasting blooms here in the spring, so it lasts about 2 to 3 weeks. Really, really gorgeous tree, and with all the different leaf colors that they have now, it's just really ornamental and really different, and different sizes and shapes as well. So we're starting to kind of get lots of different looks out of these. So a great tree, a native tree, really, really popular redbud, awesome, awesome tree. So come in and check those out if you're interested in that. Move this one out of the way. All right, so on to number 8. Let's pull out my number 8 here. This is number 8, the river birch. So river birch trees are amazing. So this is my biggest tree of my collection here today. I don't want to scare anybody with large trees. There's a lot of large trees out there. I think they're great. The longevity of them are amazing. River birch is a great tree, especially in this area where we might have water issues. If we've got a lot of water, then river birches can consume a good amount of water, and they prefer it for sure. This one's called Duraheat, and Duraheat was hybridized to be a little bit more drought tolerant of a birch tree. All big trees come with small issues that we'll just have to put up with. Let's go through them. Oaks have acorns. Maples have a very top-heavy root system. They also get those whirlybirds that come down. River birches can be a little messy. And so what I mean by messy is they're very light and twiggy. And so when we have storms, sometimes you get a lot of twigs dropping out of them. But the winter interest, and I think the year-round interest of the bark, is absolutely amazing with that peeling bark. Of course, we can't grow the white birches in this area anymore. Too hot, too many disease, and too many insect issues on those white birches. But this is about the best that you can get with a birch. They get about 40 feet tall with about a 25-foot to maybe 30-foot spread. Very, very vase-shaped. As they age, they can crown out a little bit, but usually very, very vase-shaped. Multi-trunked is the best, makes them the strongest for sure. They can take a lot of water. So if you've got a wet area, if you're forming a rain garden, they can take it. They're really, really great about that. In a drier condition, why do people, I actually think this is kind of a good feature, but some people don't, but I think it's kind of cool. In extremely hot times, Duraheats, but any kind of river birch will drop half their leaves in that kind of mid to late summer time frame. And you'd be saying, well, that's not good. Well, it's doing it to protect itself. The more leaves that it's got to have on there, the more it's got to kind of have water and go through that photosynthesis process and all the things that the tree does to survive. And so what it says is, it's too hot, I'm not getting enough moisture. Let me drop some of my leaves here in the late summer months so that I can get into the fall season and go into the dormant time. But in a wet area, you won't have those issues. In a drier area, you might see that. I think it's kind of a cool thing. Go out there, rake up some leaves in that late summer, early fall time frame, and you've got half your leaf rake up done. So I think it's kind of a cool thing. You can add them to your compost pile and get a start on your compost pile a little early, and your leaf drop won't be as bad when we get into the fall season when they drop all their leaves. I think they're awesome in bunches. I know I've been to a lot of botanical gardens. I love the Lewis Ginter Botanical Garden up in Richmond, and they have a grove of these. I think it's maybe 5 or 7 of these. Huge shade garden created under there. You can put a bench under there. You can put lots of other shrubs, ferns, hydrangeas, think of all the viburnums and all the different things that you can grow in that shady kind of environment underneath a river birch is amazing. And so river birch is a great one. This is a really cool tree. It's pretty fast growing. So if you're looking for a fast growing shade tree, this could be a great option. They're very ornamental. They have a very good root system too. Sometimes can get a little top heavy, but pretty good. When we get into these larger trees, most of your smaller trees you really don't need to worry about. And by small tree, I mean anything 30 feet and under, which is pretty much everything I'm talking about today, except for this guy. And so those you pretty much can plant pretty much anywhere. I would say no closer than 10 feet from the house. With a river birch, I would go no closer than maybe 20 feet from the house. And that's just, we're talking about not breaking your foundation or having foundational issues. Also, sidewalks, driveways, those types of things. Make sure that you're at least 10 feet away from those when you're planting a larger tree, because we don't want to crack your driveway, crack your concrete, sidewalks and stuff like that. That can cause issues down the road. But really, really pretty tree and grows pretty quick. So in about 10 years, you've got a good size shade tree that's casting a good shadow. So really, really popular tree. Of course, there's other shade trees, but this is one of my favorites because it's quick, it's fast, it's ornamental, it's got year-round interest with the peeling bark, these little leaves that are really, really popular, and just a great kind of sound and movement to it. Just one of my favorite of shade trees is the river birch, and very useful in the fact that if we have a wet area in our yard, this is a great one to use. Let's see, I think I saw a couple questions pop up. Flamethrower redbud is really cool. Yep, there's a lot of different varieties out there. I love my river birch. It has survived some snow and ice storms that bent each trunk to the ground. That's awesome, Wendy. Yep, they're very strong trees, very tough. The only problem is that now that it's big, the shallow, whirly roots or wiry roots prevent me from digging and planting holes for other plants anywhere close to it. Would it be okay to cut through some of those little roots to plant a flowering plant? So Wendy, yes, it's okay. I wouldn't do it aggressively. So I would not go around and dig 100 holes underneath your river birch and damage those little wiry roots. Those little wiry roots, yes, that happens on a river birch with age. What I always recommend when planting a big tree, think about the plants that you want to get established underneath it at an early point. Within the first probably 2 or 3 years, you'd like to get those plants established around it. Even if it's like, let's say, a shade-loving plant and you don't quite have the shade yet, trust me, it's better to get those plants in early. Now, it's okay to do it. If you're going to plant 3 or 5 or maybe even 10, Wendy, you'd be fine underneath your river birch. You're not going to damage the root system that much. Try and, of course, not cut into huge parts of the roots, but smaller, wiry roots are their feeder roots. They're out there getting all the moisture that they possibly can, as much nutrients as they can, but they also rehabilitate very quickly. So when you cut them, they do grow back fairly quickly, so you're not going to hurt the tree that bad. Do Japanese maples fall into that 10-foot rule? No, and I will get to Japanese maples, so Joyce, stick around because I think they made it on my list. But river birch, great tree, great shade tree. I think they're absolutely stunning in a grouping of 3 or 4 or 5. If you have the space for it, it creates a little micro environment underneath that you'll be able to enjoy all summer long. It'll keep you really cool in the summer months. It's just an amazing tree. The bark is great. Fall color is about kind of that goldish color. So it's a little bit of that yellow gold color, really pretty fall color. But the winter interest is there. They leaf out pretty early in the spring. A little bit of pollen, a little bit of mess with the twigs, but every tree comes with a little bit of an issue, especially when we're talking about big shade trees. They all have a little bit of a problem, but that's nature, and sometimes we got to deal with it to get that shade that we want. But river birch is a great one, very easy to grow, and does very well in this area. All right, so we'll move on to my number 7. And this is a tree you don't see a whole lot of. So this is called a styrex. Again, not much to look at, just a little tree, green leaves, nothing happened on it right now, but very soon styrex, or also known as Japanese snowbell, will start to bloom. Japanese snowbells are really cool trees. You don't see a lot of them in this area, but they're very unique and very different, becoming a little bit more popular. They get about 20 to 25 feet, maybe 30 feet with age, but typically about a 20-25 foot tall tree. Again, kind of that cool, unique, sprawling habit, can become a little rounded, but typically is very unique and different looking. The leaves emerge first on this tree, and then the blooms will start to form, and they'll be kind of snow bells, and they literally hang like little white bells. Very easy tree to grow. It's got kind of a really cool, unique bark that's a little peely looking, and just is a great small tree. Great for kids to climb on. Really, really kind of works well in the Zen look, as well as, you know, the classic traditional yard landscape look. Great focal point, great specimen, great planting and groupings as well. So Japanese snowbell or styrex, really, really cool tree. It can form berries over time that are not edible for us, but sometimes you'll find some birds that might like them. They don't spread. Some of the older styles typically will spread, and so that was one of the problems with this tree kind of getting started, was it kind of popped up all over your yard. It started to spread a little bit by seed. But these don't anymore. They're not as bad about that as much anymore. We try and get males out there as much as we possibly can. Sometimes you'll get a female here and there, but usually not a very reliable seed production from those trees anymore. So really, really cool tree. It gets, I think it's more of on the yellow. Let me just check my notes here. That was the only thing that I sometimes forget my fall colors. So it turns yellow to red in the fall. So really, really pretty fall color. I just love the uniqueness of it. The branches kind of have that really cool sprawling habit. So again, I kind of go to the dogwood and say dogwoods had that really kind of cool looking habit. But the snowbell look is just amazing. It's a great tree to limb up and sit underneath, because when it blooms in the spring, all those flowers are looking down on you. So it's a great tree to look up into. Really, really great tree. Very, very different. Let's see, did I miss it? They do have some fragrance to the blooms, so it's got a little light fragrance as well. Let's see. So I think that's pretty much it for that one. I mean, there's not a whole lot going on with this tree other than that it blooms a little bit later in spring. So a lot of times when we're talking about spring blooming trees, a lot of my trees are, because I mentioned it's one of my favorite times to be out in the yard and kind of experience those trees. A lot of trees will bloom in the spring, early spring. So you think of your cherries and your pears, your red buds, and they're kind of done fairly quickly. Well, Japanese snowbells, Cyrex, come right after that. So it gives you a little bit of a different time in the spring, and the blooms last a good 2 to 3 weeks. Really, really cool tree, really unique. Pretty moderate grower, so grows about 1 to 2 feet a year. So it can get up there pretty quickly, and it's a really, really great small tree. Very strong as well, so a great one. Does the snowbell come in a weeping version? I was thinking I saw one at the NBG. So yes, they do come in a weeping version. I don't know if I carry them right now. A lot of trees do. The red bud does. We might get to cherries, when cherries also have weeping varieties that have a weeping form to them. And of course, Japanese maples. If you're looking for something that's blooming, that's weeping, cherries are usually the most common one, so maybe that's what you saw, but Japanese snowbells do make a weeping variety as well. Can Japanese snowbells be invasive? So yes, Amy, back when we first started cultivating them and we were using varieties that did drop a lot of seeds, yes, they could spread, and I wouldn't call them invasive. It wasn't a hard thing to control them, but Japanese snowbells don't typically do that as much. A lot of times we're trying to get male varieties. Sometimes a female will get in the mix, but if there's not a male nearby, then it usually doesn't get pollinated. So I know I had a good friend of mine that had a home that had 2 of them. One of them was a male, one of them was a female, and the female produced seed all the time. And yes, they kind of popped up around the yard, but they aren't hard to pull when they're young. They're not too hard to manage, so I wouldn't call them invasive, Amy. But really, really cool tree. Very different, very unique. You don't see a lot of them in this area. And actually can be really kind of a nice little crown on them as they get older. They can form this nice round globe shape, which is really kind of cool. All right, so that's Japanese snowbell. That was my number 7. Number 6, a cool tree you don't see a lot of, serviceberry. So this is a serviceberry. Serviceberries are native, so really kind of cool. This almost kind of could creep up to one of my top favorites. I've never actually grown a serviceberry. I love them so much, but I don't have one yet, but I need to get one pretty soon. Serviceberries get about 20, 25 feet tall. I used to say 15 to 20, but the more that I see them, they're probably in that 20 to 25 foot range, but 15 to 25, somewhere in that range, in about a 10-year period, depending on the growth habit. This one is a multi-trunked. A lot of them are multi-trunked, so you're going to see right here, kind of that crepe myrtle look where you get a lot of trunks coming out of the base. Sometimes you can find them in a single trunk form. We do have a couple now that are a single trunk. These great looking white blooms. So think of Bradford pears. Bradford pears you don't see as much in garden centers anymore. We used to carry the Cleveland pear, but they're not as popular anymore either. Cleveland pears were a little bit stronger than the Bradfords. The Bradfords were splitting and falling apart because of our high winds. The Cleveland pear was a little bit stronger, but it got 40 feet tall. I mean, I was getting up there, and a lot of people were worried about the height. While it was narrow, it was tall. But a lot of people hate the Bradfords or any of the pears because of the smell of the blooms. Now, this has a similar fragrance, but a much lighter fragrance, so it's not as strong as those pears that some of us hate the smell of. But short-lived, so you don't have to worry about it too much. Let's talk about all the other attributes. It's multi-trunked, it's vase-shaped, so it's a really cool shape. So I said about, 20, 25 feet tall, by about 15 feet wide, so not a hugely wide tree. So great for small spaces. These flowers in the spring, white little bouquets of flowers, so you can see this little flower here. Bunch of little flowers clustered together. these will actually turn into berries. So they start off green, they go to red, and then they turn to a dark purple. They're edible. You can eat them. You see a lot of people making jams out of serviceberry. Birds absolutely love them. If you're looking for a native tree, it's native. Did I mention that? Native to this area. Birds absolutely love it, and they love the berries on them. So hopefully you get them. A lot of times the birds get them, but they're great to eat fresh. They kind of taste like a blueberry a little bit. So they're really, really great trees because they bloom. They produce an edible fruit that is not commonly seen that much. Birds love them, so it's a great. And then the fall color is absolutely amazing. Going from reds to orange to yellow, you get almost all the different fall colors in this one tree. It's called Autumn Brilliance for that reason. Not only do you get the berries as we get closer to the fall season, but you also get the amazing fall color. Let's see, I saw a couple. So yep, so she said serviceberry is great for the birds. Awesome, I agree. Have 2 serviceberries that tried to limb up into multi-trunk trees. I don't know the variety of mine. They sucker a lot. Are there varieties that don't sucker as much? No, unfortunately there's not. Multi-trunked plants want to sucker. So let's talk about that for a second, because crepe myrtles kind of fall into that category as well. When we take a multi-trunked, a bush, because crepe myrtles, serviceberry are kind of in that bush category to tree. And we try and turn them into a tree. Well, what we think a tree looks like might not be what the serviceberry thinks a tree looks like. What we think a tree looks like is a trunk to a canopy, right? Not all trees adhere to that. Crepe myrtles, serviceberries don't. So when we go in and we try and eliminate some of those trunks, then yes, you're going to get suckers. So Wendy, my best advice to you is cut as hard and deep down as you can to get those suckers out. If they keep coming back, then maybe pick some of the stronger ones and let them come back up too and be leaders, because maybe it just wants to have more trunks than you're allowing it to have. And that can happen sometimes. But the best thing to really do is go in and prune them as hard and deep as you possibly can, trying to get it down below the soil level if possible. You're not going to hurt it typically, and that will help kind of prevent it from hopefully coming back. But it could be an ongoing problem, and that's just an unfortunate thing. If you want to, Wendy, when they start to come out and you start to get a lot of suckers, pick some of the stronger ones and cut off all the other ones around it and see if maybe that strong one prevents the other ones from growing, because it's trying to combat what you're trying to do to it. So she said, I gave up and let them be bushes. They're still pretty. Yes, I agree. And so sometimes plants want to be what they are, and don't mess with that sometimes. And as you will see, Wendy, as they get older and they get a little bit bigger, and the suckers maybe stop a little bit, then you can go in and take some of those off and form it into the tree shape that you really want. But serviceberries are gorgeous trees, native, great fall color, great blooms in the spring, as you can see here, starting to bloom right here, and then edible fruit and amazing fall color. So what a great tree. It actually can take a little bit of shade. So they're full sun to a little bit of shade. They need at least 4 to 5 hours of sunlight, but a great shape, a great small tree, a native tree that insects and birds absolutely love. Great little source of pollen for those early bees flying out there looking for some pollen, and then great berry set for your bird lovers out there. So a really, really popular tree, one of the best, I think. So we're getting there. That's my number 6. Serviceberry. Let's see, where do I want to put this? All right, so next on my list, number 5, we're getting down to the bottom here. Number 5 is Japanese maples. So of course, Japanese maples are hugely popular. There's so many different varieties. I can't even remember anymore what number we're up to, but I think it's about 12,000 different varieties now of Japanese maples. So many different sizes, so many different shapes. You can grow these in so many different locations. So let's kind of go through the list of why they're so unique and so cool. Some get 2 feet tall. Some get 25 to 30 feet tall. So you get a wide range of sizes. If you're looking for a tree that fits a specific need, that's a specific size that you want, a Japanese maple is probably going to be a great fit, because they grow from all of those sizes, 2 feet, 4 feet, 6 feet, all the way up to 25 feet, 30 feet. So there's lots and lots of great sizes for you. There's different habits. Upright, your upright growers that grow more like a tree. And then of course, the weeping Japanese maples. So like this is a little, I think this is either waterfall or viridis. Emerald lace, sorry, there's a lot of them, but a green lace leaf weeping Japanese maple. So these have a weeping habit. They're great for almost form a shrub look but you can limb them up. You can bonsai them. You can do lots and lots of different things with them. Crepe myrtles are like Japanese maples are like our crepe myrtle. So you can prune them. They take to pruning very well. They're very easy to grow. Lots and lots of different spaces. You can grow them in sun or shade. What I will say about the sun and shade kind of dilemma with Japanese maples is the burgundy leaf, the bigger leaf, and the larger green leaf. Let's see, did I grab a larger green leaf? This is the first plant I ever bought was a Shishigashira Japanese maple. It's about, I'd say, maybe getting close to 8 to 10 feet tall now, somewhere in that range. But it was the first plant I bought 17 years ago. I grew it in a pot for 15 years. I just planted it 2 years ago. And that's what this is a Shishigashira. Really cool looking plant. So they have green leaves or burgundy leaves, and then there's a lot of colors in between. Some that have variegated, that have pink in them. There's a lot of different colors. But green leaf and burgundy leaf Japanese maples that have broad leaves, bigger leaves, can take sun better. The weeping Japanese maples or the lace leaf Japanese maples, because there's some upright Japanese maples that have lace leaves, like the Siryu is a green lace leaf that grows upright. Those prefer a little bit more shade. And that's because it's a very fine leaf, and so in that hot summer months, you might see a little bit of burning on them. However, you're going to get some of the best colors in full sun. So it's really a dilemma. If you want to grow one in full sun, we can help you do it. What also helps is mulch, watering. If we're getting into those extreme hot time frames where you need a little bit of, the tree might need a little bit of help, Japanese maples are awesome. So I know somebody mentioned earlier, Japanese maples, how close can you plant them to the house? You can plant these fairly close to the house, especially a weeping Japanese maple. You could be somewhere between 5 to 7 feet from the house easily. An upright one like this, I might go 7 to 10 feet. And that's only not because the root system would ever hurt your foundation, but it's really so that the tree can really get to its full glory. You don't want the branches hitting your house and always have to be cutting them off your house. So whenever you think about the size of a tree, whether it's a river birch or a Japanese maple, and we say it's going to get 15 to 20 feet tall on the top. The canopy is going to get 15 to 20 feet tall wide, or 15 to 20 feet wide, the canopy is going to get. Then 10 feet from the trunk in every direction. So it's not 20 feet from the trunk, it's 10 feet. So if you're planting this here, you want to be about 10 feet away from your house so that this tree can really form and have its own habit. 7 to 10 feet, somewhere in that range, you're going to be perfectly fine. They're never going to disrupt your concrete, your foundations, walkways, sidewalks, driveways, any of those things. You're never going to have an issue with them. They just don't have a strong enough root system to do that, but they are strong rooted. Now, all maples, whether it's a huge October Glory maple or a smaller Japanese maples, have a fairly top-heavy root system. And that's why I think mulching is very important. Keeps those roots nice and cool in those summer months, prevents burning of the leaves, and keeps them digging down deeper to form that deep root system. But all of them are very light trees. They move very good in the wind, and they're very strong trees, and they can take to pruning very well. So if you happen to lose a little bit of a branch here and there in a storm, whether another branch fell on it from a larger tree or it just happened to snap or something, it's going to be perfectly fine. Go make a nice clean cut on it, and it'll reflush and be perfectly fine. Japanese maples have 4-season interest. That's what's so cool about them. One of the first trees to leaf out in this area. So as you can see, these are already almost fully leafed out and just amazing color, whether it's green or whether it's red. There's just so many different choices, and there's a lot in between. And so the spring interest is there because it kind of erupts in the spring, and you see this. They also can get little flowers on them, and they turn into those little whirly birds sometimes, those little pinwheels that fly down to the ground, and typically aren't going to pop up all over your yard. And some people will get them that pop up as volunteers around their yard, and they'll pot them up and they'll grow them and take them on to the next generation. But Japanese maples are very, very cool in the spring. In the summer months, they add unique structure and habit and focal points to the landscape. They can increase your land value. In the fall, the color intensifies. So this is going to turn to an extremely bright, vibrant red. A lot of the green varieties get gold to orange to red to different types of corally colors. The fall color is just super intense on all Japanese maples. And then, of course, I think the habit, the structure of a weeping Japanese maple or an upright Japanese maple is amazing in the winter time frame. So they're just great trees year-round. They're small. There's one that can fit any kind of size or shape that you're looking at to fit into your landscape. Let's see, I saw a couple of questions pop up there. Lion's Head, so let's see, maybe there was another one right before that. Yeah, Lion's Head is another great variety, Jeff. Yes. Janet said we have Shishigashira in a huge pot. And that's what's so cool about Japanese maples. Thank you. I forgot to mention that. You can grow a lot of these in containers. I mentioned my Shishigashira that I had in a pot for 15 years. So they're slow growing. They do take some time. I mean, some of these upright growers can grow a little bit quicker, but a lot of these weeping varieties and smaller dwarf varieties like the Shishigashira take years and years to grow, and you can grow them in containers for a long time. How large of a container should be, how large of a circumference should be mulched mound for a taller Japanese maple, and how deep? So always mulch 2 to 3 inches. That's standard. 4 inches, it was okay. I wouldn't go to 5. 1 inch is just not going to last very long. So anywhere from 2 to 4, let's say 2 to 4 inches, 3 inches being kind of perfect. Is how deep you want to mulch. Circumference-wise, I would love to say get out as far as the branches reach. I know that's not always ideal, so I would say at least 3 to 5 feet. So let's say I was going to go plant this out in my landscape in my lawn. Then I would probably at least initially try and get a 3-foot circumference all the way around this tree. And I guess I should say diameter. I'd like to come 3 feet, so 6-foot circumference all the way, or 6-foot diameter is all the way across. Radius, I guess, is what I'm thinking. Trying to go back to my geometry days. So yes, 6 feet probably all the way across, 3 feet out from the trunk, all the way around, a perfect circle would be great. And that would keep the root system nice and cool, at least that top root system. It also helps preventing the grass from coming around it. If you just do a small circle around it, much easier for those weeds and grasses to kind of encroach around the trunk, and more likelihood of you clipping the trunk when you're mowing or weed whacking. So I definitely think the larger the circumference, the better. Of course, all trees have a canopy, and that canopy and how far those branches come out it's what we call its drip zone. And so the drip zone on a tree, let's say I'm a tree and my branches are hanging all the way out here, then right down below that is about as far as my root system comes out. So again, kind of goes back to my canopy example. If our canopy is 20 feet, then 10 feet from the trunk is about where its feeder roots are going to be. So when you're fertilizing a tree, we're not fertilizing it right at the trunk, we're fertilizing it out in the drip zone. So Japanese maples are awesome. They're extremely versatile, so many different collections. People collect them. I mean, that's how popular they are. They can increase your land value. They have 4-season interest, and there's tons and tons of varieties. So much fun. You can start them from little ones. We have fully established ones. We have a great collection. I mean, if you're looking for one of the #1 trees that we have quantity-wise, Japanese maples are where it's at for sure. And lots of different styles. All right, I'm gonna move on from Japanese maples. If you do have other questions about Japanese maples or want to learn more about it, I did a whole webinar on it last year, and you can go back and look at all of our webinars on our website. If you go to mcdonaldgardencenter.com, click on our webinar tab, you can go down there. I did a whole one on pruning and a whole one on maintenance of Japanese maples, so really kind of a lot of good information there. Let's see. Jeff said nothing better than Japanese maples. My daughter's favorite climbing tree is a Japanese maple. Yes, Amy, we have a large one in my front yard that's about probably 25 feet tall. It was there when we bought the house. It's gorgeous, and that is the kids' climbing tree. So they make great trees. And Jeff said, I have about 115 Japanese maples. Well, you are a collector for sure. That is great. I think at one time I maybe had 6 or 7. I've given away a lot. I've lost a couple here and there, but they are awesome in containers. And Jeff, you've got a great collection, so that is really, really cool to hear. So Japanese maples, my #5. Could have been my #1. This is where we get basically to, because I love trees so much, all of these could be #1. All right, so my next one, to keep it kind of that burgundy world, is the thundercloud plum. So ornamental plum, they actually will get little tiny plums on them that you can actually eat. A lot of people don't. They're not super, super tasty, but the birds love them. So it's a great tree for the bird lovers out there. What I love about this tree is when I think of tree shapes and sizes, we all think, I think of a tree as a lollipop, you know, that perfectly straight trunk, little round canopy. That's what we all kind of want, or that's what we all envision. If we were going to draw a tree in our childhood days, it's going to be a trunk with a little bit of like a cloud shape, you know, circular globular shape on top. And that's a thundercloud plum. Really, really good standard kind of shape and size. One of the first trees to bloom in spring. Let's see, I grabbed this one because, let's see if I can tilt this forward. You can see a couple of those blooms right there on the top still as this has started to leaf out. So it's a white, soft pink. I almost call it a clear pink bloom. Really, really pretty with that dark bark. It's got this really cool dark bark. So when it blooms and you've got all these kind of soft pink, clear pink blooms, and we get a rain and that bark turns almost black, it is just stunning. And then of course, why is it really grown? I mean, the blooms aren't super long lasting, maybe 2 weeks. It's a pretty short-lived blooming tree, but the leaves are absolutely amazing. A burgundy tree that is perfectly lollipop shaped is a really cool piece in a landscape. So it's a great tree. Look at those burgundy leaves, just absolutely amazing. Of course, this is a younger tree, but as they mature, they get about 20 by 20, 15 to 20 feet tall and wide. Great little lollipop shape, very easy to grow. I do recommend, this would be my only problem with this tree, sometimes the canopy can grow a little bit faster than the root system can keep up with. So I do recommend giving it a little bit of a prune, maybe the first, every other year, maybe for the first 2 to 5 years, somewhere in that range, so that you can kind of help the root system keep up with the top. Sometimes these canopies just go nuts real fast, and that's great. You think, wow, this tree is super happy, but think about the root system. You can stake them. So let's talk about that real quick, because I haven't mentioned that. Staking trees. Why do we stake trees? Well, we stake trees in windy areas so they don't blow over. A lot of trees come in a 7-gallon to a 15-gallon size. I typically don't recommend staking a tree. And the reason I don't is because they get reliant on it. So if you're going to stake a tree, then definitely keep the stake kind of loose so that the tree is really growing on its own. If it starts to get blown one way too far, it gets a little bit more taunt. If it goes the other way, it gets a little bit more taunt from the other side. But try and keep it very loose so almost your lines are a little bit sagging, and it only prevents it from going all the way over. But if you tie it really tight and everything's taut, then that tree gets very reliant on that staking system and that rope and those ties. And then when you go to take it off, the root system hasn't developed because it said, why should I support the tree? I've got something that's supporting me anyways. Now these stakes that you're going to find on most of these trees, like this bamboo stake here, is just grown or used by the grower to kind of keep that tree growing in a certain kind of pattern. So you can see here, if we just let this tree grow naturally, it'll get a little bit more sprawly. You won't get a perfect central leader. And so what this bamboo stake is doing is helping the grower grow a nice straight central leader. And that's what's really important. When you go to limb up this tree, you've got a good leader, that nice center point. And so that's why these are used by growers. And you're going to see those on a lot of trees that I'm showing that have this kind of bamboo pole. It also helps in shipping. So when the trees come in, they don't have a chance of breaking or getting snapped or anything because they got a little bit of a nice little support here. So it helps for shipping, but it also helps for getting that central leader going. But staking a tree is not one of my favorite practices if you can at all avoid it. If you feel like it's necessary, do it for a little while and then try taking it off and seeing if that tree can get a natural, good, strong root system itself. Purple leaf plums, awesome in the fall. This burgundy color gets a little bit more intense, more on the crimson red side. Really, really pretty tree. Even in the winter, I think it's got winter interest because that bark is so dark colored. Birds like it, blooms in the spring, and that purple color. If you don't use a Japanese maple to get that purple color, this is your only other shot. There was a maple, I think it was called Crimson King maple, but those are not really great root system trees. You rarely can ever get anything planted around that because the root system is so top heavy. So Crimson Kings you probably won't see as much anymore. Gorgeous trees. If you got a big yard and you can put it way back in the back somewhere where you don't have to mess with it. But purple leaf plums are a great size, easy for the landscape, great focal point, and really easy tree to grow. The only thing I would recommend, just don't let the canopy get bigger than the root system in the first couple of years because I think that helps kind of establish that root system. Just giving it a little bit of prune in that late winter time frame, February. Give it a little tipping. What I mean by tipping is just taking these branches and cutting them back a little bit, tighten up that canopy a little bit while it's small and immature so it doesn't get out of control and allows the root system to keep up with it a little bit. All right, so before I go on to the next, let me check some questions. Let's see. Love the thundercloud plum, great. Joyce said, I want to get a couple. I saw, I think, sakura with the red branches. So Japanese maples, yep. Jeff said, I thought we had a lot, 115, well, my husband would flip. What is the life expectancy of a thundercloud plum? Great question. So life expectancy is a weird kind of thing. And it all ranges on all different types of trees. Life expectancy for all plants could be very, very long. Some are very short-lived. But For a thundercloud plum, I typically say somewhere in the 30 to 40 year range. I would think that after that, they're probably starting to get a little bit large, and a lot of people do have issues with these falling over, but mainly because they weren't properly taken care of early. But thundercloud plums don't have I would say, a certain life expectancy, like they only live to be 50 years and then all of them die. No tree, in fact, I think I read this, no tree dies of old age. They all die of some other type of issue, whether it's wind damage, insect, fungus, disease, something like that. Most trees go for that reason. So as far as old age goes, it's probably taken down because it's just gotten to a point where it's not quite as attractive as it used to be. But I would say typically you're going to get 30 to 40 years out of most of your trees, if not longer. I would hope longer. I mean, you think of like your oaks and your live oaks, especially maples, river birches, your larger shade trees. You can get 100, 150 years out of them. They're gorgeous and they last a long time. So thundercloud plums, I wouldn't say have a certain life expectancy. Let's see. Wendy said, I have a Crimson King maple. It was here when I bought the house. It's beautiful. Is the tree in the backyard? I don't try to plant under it. Yep. So Wendy, you probably know if you go to walk out there, at least in my experience of seeing large specimens of the Crimson King, very top heavy root system, lots of roots. You wouldn't want to plant it near the concrete, driveways, anything like that, because it'll crack it for sure. But a really pretty tree. And if you've got one, that's awesome. And you don't have to try and plant anything underneath it, just let it go. So great position for it. All right, let's move on to my number 3 tree. Move this just over here a little bit, because my 3rd tree is probably what you're seeing everywhere right now, is the Yoshino cherry. One of my absolute favorites. This was a hard choice, these top 3 trees, because I love all of them equally. So let's just say they're all number 1s. But number 3 is the Yoshino cherry. Yoshino cherries are what you're seeing right now, blooming white with that really cool sprawling habit. So it's a white bloom. As they age, I grabbed this one because it'll show you the whole kind of life cycle of the leaves, the blooms, and as they fade. So let's see if we can see this. So probably not quite, but you can kind of see it. So these are white, right? Pure white blooms. And then you can start to see some of these older ones with that pink hue to them. So you see these? And what is happening is when it first opens up, when the bloom first opens up, the stamens, the pollen, the stamens in the pollen are very kind of at a green stage. As they age, they turn to this raspberry color, and that color starts to bleed into the petals. So really cool because it goes through this transition of this pure white, gorgeous tree, all the way to almost a soft pink, clear pink color. Really cool, and then the leaves start to emerge. And what I love about Yoshino cherries is when the leaves emerge, they actually have an orange to reddish hue, so you get a little bit of that new leaf color, and then just a nice simple green leaf, a dark green leaf. And what I love about these is the habit, and what I also love is the size. So a lot of these trees are in that 20-foot range, and you can probably keep hearing me say 15 to 20, 20 to 25. This one is a 30 by 30. It is magnificent. I love that size because it's not so big that you have to worry about it falling and crushing your house, but it's in a great size that you can get lots of shade out of it too. So it's a good little smaller shade tree. River birches get 40, maybe 50. Oaks, maples are all going to get in that 50 to 60 to 80 foot range. Cherry trees, 30 by 30, but it's going to cast a good shadow. It's a really pretty tree and really gorgeous in the spring. This is what you're seeing in DC for the Cherry Blossom Festival. I'm not quite sure when that is. I've never made it there. I know in Newport News, where I live, there's Cannon Boulevard, which if you've ever got a chance to go down, it's getting to the point of being done. But when Cannon built the factory there in Newport News, they brought in a ton of cherry trees. And they planted them all the way down that boulevard. They're absolutely stunning. But you see them all over the place here in Virginia Beach. They're absolutely gorgeous. All over Virginia, they're amazing trees. They've also got a lot of different types of cherry trees, so I don't want to omit those either. While Yoshino is my favorite because of that size, there's also the Kwanzan cherry, which is a really cool one. I didn't bring it in here. I'm limited in space on how much I can bring in here. But the Kwanzan cherry only gets about 15 to 20 feet tall, much smaller, very vase-shaped. So while this one gets that really cool kind of, oriental kind of look, but also kind of that sprawling habit. So we'll get maybe to dogwoods here in a minute, but dogwoods have that very unique habit. I think this is kind of like a full sun dogwood. So people that always come to me and they're like, I want a dogwood. I'm not going to get too deep into dogwoods yet, but I want a dogwood, but I've got full blazing sun. It's hot. This is your guy. It looks similar to a dogwood. It has that similar habit, very unique. Not any two are the same for sure. Just gorgeous, gorgeous tree. The Kwanzan cherry is very vase shaped, so it's got that kind of V shape, very rigid tree that gets pink blooms that actually hang a little bit. So it actually leaves out first, and then it gets those little pink blooms that kind of hang, and they're a double bloom, so it's a little bit more of a formal looking bloom, kind of cool looking, little fuller, I guess you could say, and really cool tree. These will actually get berries, so they'll get little cherries on them that the birds like to eat, so perfect little tree for that. So it's great for the birds. Fall color is that orange to red to even sometimes yellows, that gold color. So great fall color, great habit. I love the bark on these as well. Similar thing to that plum, where in a rain they get super, super dark. So when it rains and they're blooming, you get this great contrast of those white blooms and the dark bark. So really, really cool tree. There's weeping cherries as well. What I will tell you about the weeping cherries, because I think this is important, I don't know how many we have right now. I don't think I saw many out there. Is the pink weeping cherry typically is a larger tree, somewhere in that 25 to 30 foot range, maybe even 40 feet tall, much bigger tree. The white snow fountain cherry is what I think a lot of people are after, and again, I'm not quite sure if we have that one, but the white snow fountain cherry is a much smaller tree, can be managed in size, and gets about 8 to 15 feet tall and wide. So a little bit of a smaller tree, a little bit easier one to control is the snow fountain cherry. So if you're looking for a weeping tree, that might be a good option for you. But this is my favorite, the Yoshino cherry. Let's see if we got any questions. 'Cause I saw a couple. Sengokaku has the red branches in the winter time. Bihu is another with winter interest. Jeff, you can probably school me on my Japanese maple knowledge. I do know Sengokaku. I do know the Bihu. Those are great ones. You're right. That bark color is absolutely amazing. Japanese maples, so many different varieties. I could not know them all. Joyce said, how far did you say the cherry had to be from the house driveway? So cherry trees, pretty good root system. You probably aren't going to have to worry about them too much on breaking your concrete. Pretty deep rooted trees. I would say to be safe, always better to be safe than sorry. I would plant them because we got 30 feet high. So we got 15 feet each way off the trunk. And as it gets older, or as that root system gets further away from the main center point, it gets a little bit weaker. So I'd say anywhere from, probably 7 to 10 feet would be about as close as I'd get to a sidewalk or driveway. From the house, 15 feet, because I don't want it running into the house. I don't want you to impede its habit to grow. So 15 feet from a house so that it's not growing into the side of your house. But from a concrete driveway, I'd say 7 to 10 feet. 10 feet would be on the safer side. But gorgeous tree. Very good root system, very strong tree, not a lot of issues. They can get a couple little, minor things like shot hole fungus, which is easy to take care of. Borers can get in there because they like the sap. But other than that, they're very, very easy to grow, and we can take care of all those problems if you ever experience them, which a lot of people don't. So cherry trees are my number 3 tree. It's hard because it could have been my number 1 for sure. All right. So let's see, I think Jeff's having a conversation with Joyce, so I'll let y'all talk about Japanese maples. Go for it. Really, really cool. All right, so number 2. Number 2 is going to be one that I'm really going to have to elaborate a little bit because it looks like absolutely nothing right now. And that is a fringe tree. So fringe trees are a native tree. It was very tough to choose between a fringe and my number 1 because I love them both dearly. But fringe trees are absolutely amazing. A native tree, usually multi-trunked, so you can see here multi-trunked, can be grown as a single trunk with a little bit of work. You got to kind of do what Wendy and I were talking about, which is pruning off some of those suckers and getting some of that to get that nice single trunk. But once you get it, it's absolutely gorgeous. Multi-trunked looks amazing as well. So what is this tree? What is this fringe tree? Well, think of fringe or lace or a beard. That's what this tree does. So it leaves out at first, so it'll start to put out its leaves, and it's just starting to swell up now. So these leaves are going to start to come out, and then this white, fleecy, fringy, beard-like bloom comes, and it just is all immersed inside the leaves of the trees. It's just all throughout the tree. It's absolutely stunning. Smaller tree, so only gets about 15 to 20, maybe getting to 20, but really in that 15-foot size, so it's a little bit of a smaller tree. Can take sun to actually a little bit of shade. Really, really cool looking tree. One of my favorites, and it's got a sweet little fragrance to it as well. Some people call them Gracie Graybeard, or what was the other one that I looked up? Because I can never remember. I always called it Granny Graybeard, but I guess that doesn't make a lot of sense. So it was Gracie or Grancy Graybeard is what I read. I still call it Granny Graybeard. That's what I've always known it by, or Old Man Beard. So really cool, leafs out. Look this one up for sure. I think you'll absolutely love it. So if you go to Amazon, just type in a fringe tree, then you'll see images of it. It's absolutely stunning. Usually very low branch, but you can limit up over time. Just a great small little specimen tree, great little fragrance to it. It's just an amazing native tree that I just love so much because I just think it's so unique, and you don't see a lot of them here. Surprisingly, being that it is a native tree, they typically aren't seen too much, but a really, really great tree, very easy to grow, has very little disease or insect issues, just a great little tree that fits a nice little small landscape. You can grow these actually in a container for a long time. I grew mine in a container for a long time before I planted it. I unfortunately have left that home, but it was a specimen for sure. I worked hard on that guy to get him to where he was, and I loved it so much. But just fringe trees are just amazing. They're native, and just that really cool looking, very unusual bloom. It literally looks like lace or fringe just hanging down throughout the entire tree. It looks like a billow of almost smoke. So like smoke trees are another cool tree. Similar to that, except not as billowy, more kind of hangy. So I kind of think of lace and a beard kind of looking like it's popping through the leaves. It is just absolutely stunning, one of my favorites. I don't think my words are doing it justice, but it is a great tree. Longer kind of leaves that are very unique and different. A great bright yellow fall color, so really, really cool look there. And then I just love the branches on it too. That's just kind of classic brown to grayish colored bark with these little kind of dots all over it that can age and start to actually peel a little bit. So really, really cool tree. Love this guy. I don't know why, it just speaks to me. It's a small little specimen tree that fits a nice little tight space. 15 by 15 is typically what I'm going to say is the size. Yes, I've seen some bigger ones, maybe 20 feet tall. I don't know that I've ever seen one over that. I'm sure they exist, but it's a great long-lived native species to Virginia and the eastern side of the United States, and it's just a really, really cool tree. So fringe tree, I know there's not lots to look at here. Trust me when I say it's really, really cool. There's our Chinese fringe tree. It's a little bit of a waxier leaf, but similar bloom. So some of them, sometimes you can get either one at our garden centers. They're not super, super popular that a lot of growers are growing them, so they're a little bit harder to get. So if I've got you super excited about getting one and we run out of them, or we don't have a whole lot, just wait. We'll get them as soon as we possibly can. So let's see, is there... All right, let's see. Yep, I think I got it. Nope, I missed it. Oh, no, I did. I got that answer. Okay, so I answered the question, Joyce, about your cherry tree. Fringe tree, my number 2, really cool tree. Trust me, I know they're kind of hard to see because there's nothing to look at right here, but I hope I did it justice by telling you how much I think it's an amazing tree. All right, so number 1, what else would it be? Being in the state of Virginia, than a dogwood. Dogwood trees, of course, are the state tree, also the state flower here in Virginia. Dogwoods are so cool, and they're so unique, and there's a lot of different styles and shapes of them now, or different varieties now that you can come by. I absolutely love dogwoods. We have a great collection of them right now, whether it's a Coosa, which I'll talk about in a minute, or your native dogwoods like your Cloud9s or your Cherokee Braves. This is a Cherokee Brave. I brought this in just so you could see those buds forming. I know they haven't quite bloomed yet. A lot of people think that those white trees that are blooming right now, the Yoshino cherries, are dogwoods. They're actually the cherries. Dogwoods are going to be next. So dogwoods will start to bloom probably in the next, I don't know, maybe week or 2, depending on weather. Very long-lived blooms, so the blooms last close to 3, maybe 4 weeks, and they can come in pinks or white. The native dogwoods, or your typical dogwoods, are going to bloom first and then leaf out. whereas your Kusa dogwoods are the Asian variety of dogwoods, your Orient, those varieties from Japan and China. Those varieties leaf out first, and then it forms the bloom on top of those leaves, which gives you a really good sharp contrast. But I love the native dogwoods. And so this is where we get into the understory argument. How to grow a dogwood. Dogwoods, unfortunately, are not the easiest trees to grow. They're kind of tricky. So I wanted to use this opportunity to explain how to grow them best. Yes, they would prefer a little bit of shade. It doesn't need to be an all-day shade. Where do they grow naturally? In forests, in wooded areas around the area. You're going to see them normally underneath pine trees that get a little bit of dappled light throughout the day, a little bit of a higher canopy so that these can get up there and stretch out, but they can grow in a lot of different wooded areas naturally. Don't go and dig one up. Not only is it against the law, but it's extremely hard to transplant them. Very, very difficult. They form a taproot that is very deep, and it's very difficult to get these to transplant. And that goes for red buds too. Don't dig up your native species. Come in and purchase one. Of course, if it's your yard and you want to transplant it, by all means do it. But don't go on the interstate and pop out of your car and try and dig up a dogwood. One, it's probably not going to work, and the tree is going to die because they just don't transplant very well from the ground to another spot. They can transplant okay. From a pot to the ground, it's a little bit easier. And so let's talk about how to do that. If you've got, let me finish up on the sun side of it. So if you've got a space in your yard that maybe gets just a little bit of reprieve, I don't say that you have to have big shade trees and plant this underneath. Is that ideal? For sure, yes it is. But if we've got a spot that maybe gets a little bit of a relaxation from the hot, intense sun in the afternoon, maybe it's on the north side of a house where finally it goes over the house, or on the east side of a house where at least in that, let's say 4 to 5 o'clock time frame in the middle of the summer, it's getting a little bit of shade. That will help the tree survive and do a little bit better. In full sun, I'm not saying it can't be done. It's just not as easy. Why? Because stressed out trees are open to other issues, whether it's an insect or a disease. Those trees that are stressed from too much sun are opened up to the other ones. I've got good news though. If you had your heart set on a dogwood and you've got full blazing sun and you just are like, I can't do it. Well, you get two options. The Yoshino cherry, I know that's not a dogwood, but it's a very, very similar look to a tree. White blooms, sprawling habit, really cool tree. Or the Kusa dogwood. So Kusa dogwoods can take more sun. So that's the good news, is if you had your heart set on a dogwood and you got full sun and you don't want to risk it with one of these, which I think you can do. I still think it's possible. I know I planted one in front of my mom's house many, many years ago. And I think that gets pretty much sun till about 4 o'clock. It's east facing, so the sun goes over the house. So it does get that little bit of reprieve. But that's a lot of sun. I mean, it gets it all day long until about 4 o'clock, and it's doing great. Now, of course, how do we plant them? So let's talk about that real quick. Dogwoods like moist, well-drained soil. So, you always see that on tags, moist, well-drained soil. Well, wouldn't we all like that? Every plant, I think, would like that. So they're not going to do super, super well in sandy, very, very well-drained soil. But they're not going to do well in a very, very wet area either. They like to be in between. So how do we get that? Well, a lot of us have clay soil in this area. So clay soils are actually a very good soil. You want to amend it with compost, which is going to help bring in some moisture, break up the clay, add nutrients. Perlite is going to be vital. Perlite is those little white styrofoamy looking things. It's not white styrofoam, but it's a way of breaking up the soil and allowing air and water to percolate through the soil. So perlite and compost are super, super important to amend your soil. Then when you plant a dogwood, plant it a little high. So dogwoods are used to growing in a wooded area, in a forest, where it gets its moisture, but then the big trees can suck up the excess moisture, right? So it's going to go away. You also are going to get more hills and slopes and valleys, and you're very rarely going to see a dogwood in a low spot in a wooded area. Usually it's going to be in a slightly higher spot on the side of a hill. That's why you see them poking out on the side of the interstate sometimes out of the wooded areas, because they're kind of mountainous plants too. So they like to get their water, and then they like it to go away. So why do I bring that up? Very similar to an azalea, rhododendron, dogwoods, all fall in that same category. Plant it a little high. And what I mean by that is put the root ball about 2 to 3 inches above your grade. So when you go to plant this and your soil level is here, Plant your dogwood about 2 to 3 inches above that grade. Take some excess soil and bring it up to the top so it sits on a little bit of a dome, a little bit of a hill. It's its own little mountain. And what that does is prevent a lot of moisture from building up right around that tree. And that really will help. And then of course mulch. Try not to prune it or nick it or cut it during the spring and summer months. That's when it's opened up to diseases. Otherwise, it's a gorgeous tree. And if you get one, it's amazing. And if you got a little bit of a shaded spot, you're going to do perfectly well. And you don't need to worry about all of these, kind of scary things that I'm saying. But once you get a dogwood, it's amazing. They're so unique. They have this awesome sprawling habit. They reach out. They form these kind of little plateaus out there. I just think they're so cool and unique. Great blooms, of course. And then, of course, they're going to berry too. Whether it's a Kusa or a native dogwood, you're going to get berries. The Kusas actually get this kind of raspberry looking berry on it that not a lot of wildlife like, but also you can actually eat. I wouldn't recommend it. Some people don't know that, but they are edible, but they have a lot of seeds in them, so it's not worth the effort typically, and that's why they're not grown for the edible berries. Native dogwoods, the birds love the berries, so they do great. It's a great native species for the birds. It's also got awesome fall color. I love that red, and then it intensifies to like a deep purple. It's an amazing fall color tree and just a cool habit. And then the winter interest is amazing. And I love the bark as it ages too. When the bark ages, it gets these kind of little tiny little chunks in there where it's really, really serrated and really, really kind of very detailed and very cool looking. So dogwoods are very, very unique, awesome. If you're looking for what a Kusa looks like, because maybe you got a lot more sun, we actually have a great specimen here at the Independence store that you can see a really cool Kusa dogwood. I don't know if I can quite see it. I can't quite see it out my window over here, but it's sitting right at the corner of our checkout area. It's a great little tree. Kusas get about the same size, 20 by 20. Some can get up to 25, maybe 30 feet tall. Very, very long-lived. Once you get it, they're awesome. So I'll stop rambling about dogwoods, but it's a really, really cool tree, pink or white. One major difference is the Kusa gets a pointed petal. So when you see a Kusa flower, it looks slightly different than a dogwood. But really the biggest difference is the dogwoods, your native dogwoods, are going to bloom first, then leaf out. And then the Kusa dogwoods are going to leaf out first, then bloom. So kind of a different time too, a little bit later. You see a lot of Kusas up in Pennsylvania, New York area, but they do very well in this area as well. So we've got a great selection right now as well. Kusas or your native dogwoods, white or red in both, or pink I should say, in both. So really, really cool plant, great selection, and it's the state flower and state tree, so you can't beat it. Obviously, it loves this area. It's a native species. All right, so before I get out of here, let me answer some questions. Manu, hello, said, what do you recommend for a wet and shady area close to the house? So for a wet, shady area close to the house, you could probably get away with the fringe tree would actually be able to take it. The service berry would probably be able to take it as well. A little bit more moisture. There's a couple other options that you could probably do. I don't think I would do the red bud because while it likes that shade, it's probably not going to love the moisture as much. I would not do a dogwood. But I think if we planted a little bit high, I think a fringe tree or a service berry would be great. There's some other options out there as well. Sweet bay magnolia, we're trying to locate some and get some in here, but sweet bay magnolia would be a cool one. You don't see a lot of those, but they're great for wet areas and can take a little bit of shade as well. So we've got a couple options there for you, Manu. So I'll talk to you later maybe on what we can do in a wet, shady area. I know you've got a couple of those for sure. But yes, those are some good options there. Let's see, Wendy said, my house came with a dogwood in full sun. It's probably 20 feet tall now. For a few years, its leaves turned dark and spotty in midsummer. Powdery mildew or heat stress. But that stopped happening and it's growing well now. That's great, Wendy, to hear that it bumped out of it. And a lot of times, plants will do that. They'll go through a phase where maybe they got powdery mildew, maybe you got a black spot fungus. The good news is it's not the deadly ones like anthracnose and those types of things. But a lot of times the best thing that you can do for a stressed out plant, especially in this situation where you're noticing leaves that are having issues, in the winter, most trees, all trees that I've talked about today, will drop their leaves, right? So they're all going to drop their leaves. In the winter, rake all those up, because if it's got a fungus or disease, then those leaves are going to be where it's going to come back from next year. So get all that leaf litter out of there. So Wendy, maybe you did that by accident by cleaning up your yard really good one year, or maybe you do it every year, and it self-cured itself. So that's great. Now, if you've had issues with trees in the past, definitely come in and check us out. It's always better to be preventative rather than curative is my feeling. And right now, trees are leafing out, and this is when they're susceptible. So let's say you had a bit of an issue with your tree last year, and you're not quite sure what it was, and we don't have a leaf to look at because all your leaves are coming out right now and they look perfectly fine. Then still come in, let's get you something like a triple action or something like a neem oil or something that we can put on the tree to help prevent those disease and insects from getting in early, because right now is when they're exposed. And right now is when disease typically sets in. If we have a cool, wet spring, that's where it typically comes from. Wind, insects, they can move around in the air. So a lot of them, this is the kind of time that happens. So getting something on there that's going to be preventative rather than trying to cure it in the summer months is the best possible solution. So Wendy, hopefully you're cured and you don't have any issues, and that's great to hear. But if it ever does occur again, come in and see us and let's get you something to work on that. I do think the layer look of the branches develops better in some shade. The ones in sun always look more rounded. Wendy, I would agree. In the sun, they're going to be a little bit more tightly compacted. In the shade, all plants are reaching, trying to find their light. And that's why you get that. A lot of shade plants are going to have those kind of arms that kind of come out and say, oh, I found a pocket of sun, I'm going to sit right here. And that's what they're looking for in the sun, in the shade. In the sun, they don't really need as much. So they typically kind of stay there and they say, I'm getting plenty of sun, I don't need to go and find it myself. Which is why I think they look better in the shade. And I think that's kind of what you're alluding to, Wendy, is that they look a little bit better in the shade because they kind of form these arms and these plateaus out there, which I think is super unique. But I've seen gorgeous ones in the sun. I've seen gorgeous ones in the shade. They all look great. And you can try a dogwood anywhere you want. And there's some things that we can do to kind of help it through that process, whether it's a Kusa or a regular traditional dogwood. So let's see, I think we got one more. How about you do a top 10 shrub live stream sometime? Great job on this program. Well, thank you, Cynthia. And I think I have done my top 10 shrubs. So go back and look at my webinars. I've done so many now that I can't even remember how many I've done. But yes, I love these top 10s. It's a time for me to kind of go through some of my favorites. I've grown a majority of these. The serviceberry is staring me in the face saying, you got to buy me. So I think I'm going to have to get a serviceberry. But I've grown lots of trees. Figs, ginkgos, fringe trees. Pawpaw is kind of another cool one that you don't see a lot of. We don't have a lot right now. Pawpaw is a native tree. I grew one for, let's see, probably 10 years in a pot. I'd say it was about 10 years. And then I lost it. Literally, the pot blew over, snapped it in half, never came back. So I bought one, I think last year or 2 years ago, planted it. We're seeing how it's doing now. But pawpaws are cool. I absolutely love trees. I can't tell you how much. I've got a big piece of property that has lots of trees, whether it's the gumball trees, which I know a lot of people hate, and I kind of hate them too because they drop those gumballs. It's still a tree. It's still a huge tree that is providing lots of oxygen for us to play in, a nice cool spot for me in the summer. So I cannot say that I hate a tree because I love them all. Even, weeping willows that have a crazy life expectancy. I know somebody mentioned that earlier. I don't know what the life expectancy of a weeping willow is. Sometimes it could be, 5 years. Sometimes it could be 100 years. So trees are so cool and unique, and there's so many different ones out there. I probably shouldn't mention this, but I'll mention it so you know how much of a fan I am of trees. And I've never been in an accident, but sometimes on driving home, I will be like just awed by a tree and just really kind of like be awestruck by it. And never been in an accident, and I hope to not be. But trees capture my imagination and capture just the environment, and they're so beneficial to us, and I just love them so much. So obviously I think you all got that through this webinar, that I think trees are extremely important. I love them. There's so many different ones. You think about all the varieties of Japanese maples, to all of our native trees, to our big shade trees, to all of them. They're amazing, whether they're producing fruit for us or food for us or a home for our native insects and wildlife. There's just so many different things out there that you can do with trees. So come in and check us out. Plant a tree for Mother Nature, for yourself, for your enjoyment, for the longevity of your home, and for the longevity of our environment. So have a great day. I hope you all enjoy this. Thank you all so much for joining, and we'll see you next week when we get ready for our veggie season coming up. We'll start prepping our yards for our veggie season. Have a great day, everybody.